When Claire Wilson begins teaching at Westerbrook High School, she meets her student Eric, who asks her to tutor him so he can reach the required score on his SATs and attend the University of Texas just like she did. The woman agrees but chooses to keep the tutoring sessions a secret from her husband Matt. Eric also chooses not to tell his best friends Josh and Logan. After a few weeks, Claire takes the student on a tour of the University of Texas. There, they run into Cody, Logan's older brother, and Eric introduces Claire as his friend. The day after the tour, the student impulsively kisses the teacher after class, prompting her to end their tutoring sessions and telling him to stay away. However, the next day, he begs her to reconsider and promises never to do anything inappropriate again. Before their next session, she waits for the student but he never shows up. During a school dance, Claire feels jealous when she sees him dancing with his ex-girlfriend Allison. She confronts him about why he didn't show up for tutoring, so he finally admits that he stayed away because he can't stop thinking about her. Eventually, she signals him to join her in her car, and they drive off to an empty parking lot where they finally make love. After their secret rendezvous, Eric heads home where his mother Sandy asks him how the dance was, and he says he had a great time. Meanwhile, outside her house, Claire sits in her car and is exhilarated and in disbelief about what just happened. Then she walks into the house and sees Matt practicing with his bandmates. He asks if she wants to hang out with him, but she says she's tired and would rather go to bed. In his room, the teen sits on his bed and revels in the fact that he just slept with his attractive teacher. The next day, Eric meets up with Logan and Josh, and when they ask him where he was last night, he says he wasn't feeling well and headed home. However, when Logan steps away, Josh tells the teen that they've known each other since they were kids and knows when he's lying. Again, he asks him what he was really doing after the dance. To satiate his friend's curiosity, Eric says he was with a girl he met at work and adds that things are complicated at the moment. Minutes later, while fondly remembering the events last night, he texts Claire that he can't stop thinking about her. The woman reads the message but immediately deletes it from her phone. On Monday, Allison confronts Eric about why he left the dance without telling her. He apologizes and says he was sick, but Allison doesn't buy his excuses and walks away. In class, the teen can't help but stare at Claire while she hands out their graded papers. When she hands Eric his paper, she tells him that he did a good job and he cracks a smile. Later, the teacher asks to speak to the teen in private. She tells him to meet her in their usual spot after soccer practice to his delight. While waiting in the empty parking lot, Eric sees Claire's new post online and likes it. The woman receives the notification, sees that the teen liked her post, and curses under her breath. When he gets in her car, she admonishes him for liking her post, reminding him that her husband can see it. She wants them to establish ground rules for their arrangement, specifically not telling anyone about them, only meeting on Mondays, no secret meetings on school grounds, no photos, and that he should change her name on his phone. He shows her that he already changed her name on his phone and also unlikes her post, just like she wanted. After agreeing on the terms, she mentions that it's a Monday and proceeds to remove her clothes so they can make love. That evening, Claire arrives home to Matt having prepared dinner. He asks her if he's okay after seeing the troubled look on her face. She insists she's alright, but that she had a bad day at work. He calls her over to him for a hug and she starts removing his clothes to pleasure him. Days later, while Eric hangs out with his friends at school, he locks eyes with Claire, who's on the second floor. Claire asks the French teacher Catherine if she'd like to go out and have drinks on Saturday, and she accepts. On Saturday, Eric stays home to babysit his brothers while their mother goes on a date. Meanwhile, Claire and Catherine have drinks at a bar. She heads to the restroom where she impulsively takes a suggestive selfie, which she then sends to the student. He enthusiastically responds, but when she says she wants to see him right now, he says he can't, to her disappointment. When she doesn't respond, he changes his mind and says he'll be at their usual spot in 30 minutes. Before he leaves, He asks Lee Ann to watch his brothers while he's gone. Soon, he reaches the parking lot where Claire's waiting for him in her car. She immediately wants to start making love, but Eric stops her. He explains that her message confused him, seeing as she was the one who established the rule that they can only meet up on Mondays. She dismisses his concerns and kisses him, but he stops her again to tell her that he doesn't just want to keep sleeping with her. The teen says he really likes the woman because she's smart, beautiful, and unlike anyone he's ever been with. Flattered, she says she likes him too, eliciting a giddy smile from Eric, and they proceed to make love. Later, when the student enters the house, he sees his angry mother. She asks him where he was and why he left his brothers with someone else. He lies and says he went to Logan's to return a textbook, but she knows he's lying because she called his friend. She informs him that his brother burned himself while he was gone, and the teen feels awful for his negligence. Weeks later, Claire and Eric are at a rental house situated in an expensive ranch. He takes a video of the woman as she jokingly takes him on a tour of the house. As they stare at the beautiful view outside, she greets him a happy birthday before reminding him to delete the video, which he does. At dinner, the teacher opens up about how she lost her mother to cancer when she was 9. She gets emotional and apologizes, but he tells her it's okay and that he'd like to hear more about her life. The next day, after they wake up in bed, her phone rings with a call from her husband. She steps away to answer it, and as she talks to Matt outside, Eric watches her from the kitchen. To end the call, she tells her husband that she has to attend a seminar soon. When she gets back in the house, she notices Eric acting coldly, so she apologizes and says she didn't have a choice but to answer the call. He begins to walk away, but she tells him to stop. Seconds later, the teen orders her to take her undergarments off. The statement surprises the woman, so he repeats it sternly. She follows his orders and he makes love to her on the table. That afternoon, the couple hangs out in the backyard, and the student teaches the woman how to use illegal substances. That night, Claire admits that she never slept with a man until she married Matt. She says it was self-imposed, which is why she never drank or dated in college. Then she asks him how long he and Allison were together, and he says 6 months. The woman remarks that he'll meet plenty of women in college and that he has his entire life ahead of him. Hurt by her words, he steps away for a bit. Minutes later, she follows him and asks why he's acting coldly towards her. Eric admits that he didn't like how she casually mentioned the other women he'll meet in college, and how tomorrow she'll return to her husband as if this trip never happened. She explains that he won't want to be with her when he's in college because he'll be done with her by then. Claire reminds him that she's risking her entire life just to be with him, and adds that she hates having to go home tomorrow because all she wants is to stay there with him, but knows she can't. When she starts to cry, he takes her in his arms, apologizes, and tells her he loves her. She says she loves him too, to the teen's delight. Then they head to the bedroom to make love. The next day, the couple enjoys their last few hours alone on the ranch before driving back to town. Eric's mother greets him as he arrives home and says she hopes he had a great time on the trip with his friends. Before she heads off to work, she greets him a happy birthday and leaves the teen at the kitchen table with his cake. Meanwhile, Claire is at the bar waiting for Matt's band to start playing. Soon, Catherine arrives, and the woman thanks her friend for accepting her invitation. When the bartender refuses to acknowledge them, the French teacher sneakily grabs a bottle from behind the bar, and they run out to the parking lot to drink it. Catherine asks Claire where she was during the weekend, and she says she was in Dallas for a conference. However, Catherine knows she's lying, stating that she's been glowing recently and she can tell that she's having an affair. Shocked, Claire denies her accusation and insists that she was on a work trip with colleagues from her old school. Eventually, after her friend's consistent prodding, she caves in and admits that she's having an affair. The friend seems amused by the revelation and says she understands why she's doing it. At first, Claire refuses to tell Catherine who it is, but when she reveals that the person she's seeing is younger than her, it piques her friend's interest even more. Intoxicated, she finally tells the French teacher that she's seeing Eric, her student. Initially, Catherine thinks she's joking and laughs, but when she realizes that Claire is serious, her expression changes into shock and concern. She reminds the woman that Eric is her student and that having a relationship with him is a monumental abuse of power, despite him being technically of age. Claire tries to reason by saying that they love each other and that what they have is a real relationship between consenting adults. However, Catherine says she has no choice in the matter and that she'll have to report her friend to the school administration. The French teacher walks away and Claire realizes what she'd done and what's about to happen now that the secret is out. The next morning, the woman's guilt prompts her to admit to Matt that she's having an affair with her student. Meanwhile, 2 police officers drop by Eric's home to speak to him. They ask him about the nature of his relationship with Claire. He says that she tutors him to help him with school, but that he doesn't really know much about her. When the cops ask if the teacher's done anything inappropriate with him or if they ever fooled around, he denies their implications. However, they tell him that the school was informed this morning and that they know the whole story. They add that they know he and Claire went on a trip last weekend. They encourage the teen to tell the truth because lying won't make anything easier for the teacher or for him. Concurrently, a distressed Matt speaks to Claire's brother Nate, a police officer. He tells his brother-in-law that Claire's been sleeping with her student that she was tutoring. At first, the cop is skeptical of the revelation, but the man says his wife was the one who admitted to it. Nate tries to appease the husband by saying that if the student says it was consensual, maybe they won't press charges. Later, the student calls up the teacher to inform her that the cops came by his house earlier to ask him questions about them. He says he didn't know what to say to them, especially when they said that they knew the whole story. The teen begs her to tell him what to do, but the woman can only cry before saying she has to go and ends the call. Meanwhile, Logan walks into his house and sees his mother Victoria on the phone. After the call, the woman informs her son that news has spread that Eric is sleeping with their teacher, Miss Wilson. The teen is confused and in disbelief about the information. That afternoon, Matt returns to the house and finds his wife crying in bed. He says he wants to save their marriage. She asks him how he can even stand to look at her right now, and he says it's because they've been together 10 years and he doesn't want to waste it. Matt adds that he spoke to Nate and told him everything. He says they'll get a lawyer and go to therapy, and he still believes that they can get past the situation. Elsewhere, Logan and Josh speak to Eric about how the story has spread all over town. When he confides his concern about the teacher getting into trouble because of him, Logan argues that he was the student and she was the teacher, and the fact that she slept with him means that she has issues. When they emphasize that he shouldn't concern himself with what's about to happen to her, he says they don't understand what he's going through and walks out of the room. At dinner, Matt tells Claire that he called into work to take a few days off. She gets up from her seat and says she's going for a walk to get some air. Outside, the overwhelmed woman decides to get in her car and drives off. Soon she picks the student up and they park in a secluded area. Eric apologizes for telling the cops everything, but she says it's okay because they would have found out anyway. When she says that she's scared about what's going to happen to her life, he suggests that they should just drive off right now and run away together. The woman thinks it's a crazy idea, but the teen says that they belong together and that he can't be without her. He tells her that he loves her, and they share a kiss. Eventually, they end up in a motel on the outskirts of town. Claire answers a call from Nate, who angrily informs her that he's been calling her non-stop. He begs his sister to come back home because the authorities could look at the situation as a possible kidnapping. In the motel room, an inebriated Claire asks Eric if she was a good teacher, and he says she was. When he admits to how special he feels because a beautiful woman like her chose him, she callously says that her entire life is gone because of him. Hurt, the teen walks away, but the woman pulls him back to bed where they make love. The next morning, Eric leaves a sleeping Claire in bed and steps out of the room to check his phone. He sees his mother's and his friends' missed calls and messages of concern for his well-being. Later, the teacher wakes up, calls for the teen, but realizes that he's left her behind. Eventually, Eric returns home where his mother greets him with a hug. She then tries to comfort him as he cries in bed. Soon, Claire realizes what the right thing to do is. She drives to the police station, where she slowly walks towards the entrance. She stops midway due to her apprehension, but finally reaches the doors and surrenders to the authorities.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.